could talk a little bit about the influences on your leadership philosophy and how you look at your responsibilities presently, not only at Bright Horizons Family Solutions, but also in the larger sense of your life. Can you think of incidents that in your formative years, perhaps, or really any time leading up to where we are today, that have had a significant impact on how you see your leadership in the world today?
First, I should say that my title that is probably most significant above being the CEO of Bright Horizons is being husband and father of 3 young children, twins that'll be 7 in September, and an 8-month-old son. So a lot happening in my life that forces leadership to sort of cross between home and work often. But in terms of my own background, I grew up with pretty humble means, but with parents who taught me what unconditional love was. And I think that I feel fortunate because I do talk to others that I'm close with, and I think more than anything that sort of parenting style that my parents had was key. They sort of allowed me to be independent, to fall down, and were sort of there. But in terms of shaping, I think of some incidents in my life that have helped to shape sort of who I am as a leader and how I treat people. I think of one particular incident where again, we had fairly modest means growing up, in the sense that relatively small house, not a place where we could house a lot of people or afford, frankly, to give too much outside of our family. Both mom and dad worked, and it was a bit of a challenge. But always, I was always amazed by my mom's, in particular, ability to want to give and give and give and give. And several holidays.
You mean to you?
No,
to family, or beyond your family?
Beyond my family. So, for example, I'll never forget a time where during Thanksgiving, I found out the day before that we have this extra table set in our family, and what then was our living room to do that with. And I find out the day before that she's invited through somebody else, this Russian family that had just come to the U.S. That had sort of nowhere to go. And we had these, what was 5, I think it was a grandmother and mother, father, and 2 children who spoke very little English. I mean, it was almost impossible to communicate. It was painful. But I remember being, I don't know, 12 or 13 at the time, and thinking that my mom was crazy for doing this. And thinking and hearing her explain to me that it's really important to to be sure that when you find people who don't have anything or don't have any place to go, that you extend your hand and you extend warmth to those people. And truthfully, I think probably for the few years after that, I didn't even think twice about it. I was sort of your typical teenager, doing my own thing, me first. But as I reflect back on that, and I think about why it is that I feel strongly about giving back and wanting to be sure that as we become more fortunate with resources, that my children, even though they're more privileged with resources than I had growing up, that they have sort of a similar approach to wanting to give back. And I think as a leader, I think one of the things I've always strived to do is to have people, regardless of whatever level of the company we're talking about, feel they're important, and that everybody's sort of together working towards what our end goal is, and that I don't want to be seen as this ivory tower guy who who only talks to certain people, that sort of carves out sort of communicates in one way, and that I can be open and communicating to people at all levels of the company. So I think in some way that those experiences, and the one I gave is one of many examples of how I think my parents had my mom in particular had made that had given me that lesson.
Kind of a model.
Yeah, that model
for how to look beyond your own immediate needs and extend your home to other people.
That's right.
Which is certainly what my take on what your company is about. I mean, you're really in a unique position. In the sense that your company, your purpose, reason for being, is to help grow healthy kids.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's how maybe that's a misconstruction. You would probably have it differently, but that's certainly one important outcome of what you do. right, is to make it possible for working parents to feel good about the care that their kids are getting when they're not able to provide it directly.
That's right.
And that's, I can't think of a more important mission in the world.
Well, that's
cultivating the next generation of people.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So every day you have a chance to pursue that with vigor and to be also trying to be an economically successful company that provides returns for shareholders. So it's kind of a unique role.
Well, it is, and I think it sort of all fits together. I mean, for both for me personally, between work and home, but also in what we do, as an organization. Because when we talk about making an impact, when you think about the business that we're in, work site childcare, much like the school systems that exist throughout the world, they're socioeconomically divided based on the town or location that they live in. We have a different opportunity because we're serving, for the first time in the world, people who work together as children, not people who live together in one area. And so the opportunity with respect to diversity and the level of, both socioeconomic diversity, racial diversity, religious, whatever you want to look at, in terms of the children and the families that we're serving. Because remember, as much as we are helping young children to get the best possible start in life through really good early education.
Right.
We're also serving that family as a partner because our clients, by definition, are working, mostly dual working, mom and dad working
Right.
families. So we need to do things that help them integrate their work and life, and really be a partner to them. We're not there to take over their role as mom, dad, or primary caregiver. We're there to assist them and be their partner and to contemplate their needs. And since we're serving such a diverse population of families, our centers really need to be welcoming and celebrating diversity. In a way, there's an opportunity there that's broader than what a community-based, center would have, because by definition, most communities, not all communities, but many communities are divided based on socioeconomic term. Right. So we have an ability to make a really great impact in lots of different ways, I guess is my point. From a business point of view, we do that in partnership with companies whose interest it is to see their employees have a healthy integration between work and life, to be able to, hopefully our companies think that by offering our services, people will stay longer, be more productive while they're at work, all those things. And then in order for us to provide that, that level of service that major companies are expecting, where our bar is raised higher because we're getting investment from clients, we now need to go out and find the most talented people who want to build a career in this field and ultimately become an employer of choice ourselves. We can't help our clients who are hiring us because they themselves want to be an employer of choice in their field unless we're an employer of choice ourselves. And so we've always tried to stand for all those same high aspirations that every employer has. Fortune magazine, 9 times one of the 100 best places to work in the country, Diversity Inc.'s top 50 places to work, top 10 for African Americans, and all those things that companies aspire to do well. We try and be a living, breathing example of that.
Are.
And yeah,
so
I
you're
like
competing in the war for talent.
We are competing. That is we cannot ultimately deliver the means or deliver on what we're all about without ultimately being an employer of choice.
But how do you do that in an industry that is perennially so far down on the wage scale?
Well, that's where the opportunity in our view comes in. So ultimately, if we can get employers to sponsor our services to some degree, we can then take out some elements of the cost structure that would ordinarily need to be done by if we were just relying on what parents could invest in care. So if an employer is going to invest in the facility, so they're going to give us the facility in which we operate in, we can afford to pay a little more in salaries. We can give the kind of benefits that people in all fields would like, not necessarily the benefits that are the norm in early childhood. So in some ways, the employer sponsorship empowers us to be able to have some of the attributes that allow us to stand out. Slightly better wages, better benefits, those things. But it's not just about, as you know well, it's not just about better wages and better benefits. It's about, particularly in our field, when it's low wage and people aren't, even the people who are most passionate about this and haven't gone to school and gotten 2 4-year master's degrees in early childhood education, they haven't chosen that career because of ultimately their ability to earn a lot of money. They sort of get the fact that it is a field that ultimately isn't going to yield the kind of remuneration that it should, frankly. But society, obviously, that's an issue. So for us, it's really building a place where people can feel respected. Many times our society views teachers of young children as babysitters. And here we have people who've gone and gotten 4-year degrees for something, and their own parents might think that they've chosen a career in babysitting. And and our view is nothing can be further from the truth. I mean, you're giving a 4-year-old who is whose brain is wired for learning and is just going a million miles a minute.
I get that, Dave. You don't have to persuade me or probably anybody watching this now how important it is. What I'm wondering is how you compete for talent when our society, and I think this is really a tragic aspect of our social and economic structure, that we don't value people who care for children, and that's historically been true. So given that environment, are you as an organization, are you personally doing anything to try to change that, both in terms of social policy as well as trying to bump wages so that you're competing not just against other childcare providers, but perhaps in a broader labor market of people, young people in particular, who want to have a job, a career that's a calling as much as it is a means for putting bread on the table? I
think that the answer is yes, we're doing a lot of creative things in terms of trying to recruit more broadly. I think if you step back from it, the challenge we have is that 97% of the people who work in our field are female. And women have made great advances over the past 30, 40 years. And so the reality is that as women have achieved greater heights, and I'm glad for that, for lots of reasons, including the future of my daughters. But women now have great opportunities equal to men, to pursue their dreams. And 30, 40 years ago, a lot of those same talented women were going into the education profession, and that has gone, down, considerably over the years. So we're having the amount of people in general, but because of the large, female participation in this field, the total population of qualified talent in our field has shrunk dramatically over the past 20 years.
So you'd expect wages to go up then, right?
Well, you might think that, but in order for wages to go up, you have to remember that ultimately it's fueled by how much a parent can pay, or how much an employer is willing to pay on behalf of that parent, or how much the government's willing to kick in.
Right.
So you have 3 sources of revenue potential, and the government has not increased their revenue in a long, long time as a whole.
Future President Obama might have an impact on that?
Well, I'm all for social policy that supports early childhood education. So if we have anything to say about it, that would be true. But remember, what Bright Horizons has done over the course of 20 years is convinced employers to invest a lot of money in what is a social gap in our country, because it affects them, because it affects their performance at work and their ability to recruit them and their ability to retain them. So you're not going to get business to spend money on something that they'll give back to community under their foundations and do that type of giving. But with respect to the money they spend out of their operating budget, you're having to give them something that ultimately they believe there's a payback on. And our payback is recruitment, retention, and productivity. But touching on what you said before, one of the beauties for me as the CEO of the company, it's a direct connection to what I have going on in my life.
Yes.
So I feel blessed almost to be able to be sort of the evangelist for an issue that is so personal.
Right.
And at Bright Horizons, it's
personal in what sense?
Well, personal in the sense that I'm really, as a parent, constantly thinking about, what's best for my kids and, what the right sort of first steps in life are, what the right care is. I'm thinking about, we're thinking about juggling, what we're doing with our children, who are young. And then we're also juggling work-life integration. How do we,
Thanks for correcting that.
How do we, I don't like the word balance.
Good, me too.
So I'm not sure integration is the perfect word, but it's better than balance. And so,
Agreed.
it's a badge of honor at Bright Horizons to say, you're leaving early because you have a soccer game to coach, or you're going to pick up your children. You're on pickup today.
So
those things are very legitimate. We work hard. We expect people to achieve whatever their objectives are, but we have a culture that really that really values, and actually it would work to your disadvantage if you did it the other way. If the sense was that you were sacrificing your family on behalf of your work, and that was really sort of clear to people that you were modeling that, I think it would really work to your disadvantage as a leader within the company because it's so much a part of our culture, which isn't typical, I think. I mean, obviously, we work. We work with lots of companies, and so I never. Lots of great companies who even do what I'm talking about really well, but it's not, some of the things that we experience by virtue of who we are, are somewhat unique, I think, in the world. But again, getting back to me personally, I think that's, I feel really, really great about the ability to kind of blend it all, going through it at the same time. And besides, I have like 18,000 advisors of what's good for young children to choose from.
Yeah, do you tap into them?
Oh, sure.
No, I wouldn't. Just as a father. And,
I wouldn't say all 18,000, but certainly many of them. And we've had our children in our Bright Horizons centers, and our teachers.
Your own kids.
Oh yeah, and those experiences were very important.
So a center director has got his or her, in her charge, the CEO's kids.
That's
What's
right.
that like for her?
That's right. Well, if I have anything to say about it, it's not different than any other child. And we work hard, Suzanne and I, my wife, to to be sure that we're just laid back and trying to be just like every other parent in the center. I talk to. Well, you can and you can't be. I mean, I think there are. When you're dealing with teachers, in classrooms who are young teachers, you can help them. You can say to them, like I did on several occasions, look, I know the role I have in the company, but for you, I'm Julia or Sarah's dad, and I want you to treat me like that. And most importantly for them, I don't want any, So if you can't, my feeling is if you can't get over me in terms of my role, I don't want my kids to be getting anything special or different, in our programs. And our experience speaks for itself. I mean, we had some great experiences with teachers who we're still in contact with. We saved every one of our daily sheets from their toddler years, where you get a daily report on everything that happened. And we have files on both Sarah and Julia, and we created these boxes, the portfolios that our centers gave them. So they have this whole, later in life, they'll have this whole portfolio of their earliest experiences at Bright Horizons. And we got a lot of great feedback on kind of they had a lot of firsts in our center's care. All children do. And the ability for our teachers to sort of articulate that and say, hey, Julia's showing interest in letters, here's some things you might want to do, or Sarah's, behaving in this way, and it's, not the greatest, so you may want to, think about this. And all those things happen all the time, and create a really good connection. I mean, for the time my kids are in our centers, imagine my job. I'm helping my wife do some of the drop-offs on the pickups. So I'm going into our Bright Horizons Center in the morning, dropping off, getting the little certain days where the kids don't want to be dropped off. So you're in that mode, trying to talk them into it, and get them settled. Ultimately, they're fine. And then I leave there, and I'm on the phone with investors, or doing some big presentation, or going to see a client. And what am I doing when I'm talking to investors and talking to clients?
Talking about your kids?
Talking about Bright Horizons, which is a personal experience for me.
Right. Well, that's
what I mean. So it's
absolutely.
It's completely natural.
Business development and investor relations.
It's completely natural. I mean, it's completely. Unique. Now, the travel aspect of my job, of course, I mean, the place where the integration between work and life is not, and as purely integrated, of course, is travel. And that's something that we try and work out. I mean, I for example, we bought a map when the kids started to get old enough, and it was this big wooden map, and you could pull out pieces. It was like a magnet. You could pull out pieces of each state, and we'd make a thing out of them. Going to Arizona, pick up it as cactus. We talk all about Arizona, and I get on the phone with the kids at the night, and I'd say, where's Daddy? He's in Arizona. Oh, bring me back a cactus. Use my cell phone, take some pictures of cactuses and stuff, and it's a bit of an early geography lesson. So, I mean, there are ways to integrate travel, but at the end of the day, it's the one. I mean, it's the one downside. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that. It's sort of one of those practical, like all parents face. It's one of those practical factors that you have to be willing to work through, and work through that with my wife, and that's one of those aspects that have to be negotiated.